Hey, gaming community. Welcome back to another episode of Gaming Fun with Hoplite Evolved. My name is Eagle Eye.
And this is Noble. Welcome to the podcast.
So, Noble, we decided that we're going to give a little bonus episode, right? So, we've been talking a whole lot about Halo. And one of the things that we like to discuss between us is gaming franchises, where we think they are and how they're going and, just overall what we like about them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're finally putting this down to a podcast. We're going to talk about the Halo franchise, where it's at, and where we think it's going. And so I'm going to start it off with some reports that I've read up on. So Microsoft has reportedly laid off roughly a quarter to a third of their staff at 343 Industries. And this is going to cause 343 to take a different approach to the Halo franchise. It seems that this will be more of an oversight role for them versus them actually developing the games, right? And 343 is going to be responsible for maintaining the game's engine and its current games that are already out. So they're not going to be taking off these current games, but they're going to just be taking off the production of future titles. And this is due to the Halo campaign department taking the majority of these layoffs. Basically, 343 will be responsible for the multiplayer from here on out, right? So there's word that the next story DLC is reported to being scrapped as well, and it's due to it not being seen as cost-effective under the production of 343. Big surprise, right?
Yeah.
Well, there are also reports that there was never much DLC content to be planned since the beginning anyway. Like, it wasn't planned.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanna know your opinion here on, did you think that they had planned DLC content, especially during the campaign, but also multiplayer? What do you think, man?
So I'm kind of torn here. So I feel like they had something planned, but nothing that was too far in development to where they could really, make progress with it, if that makes sense.
And we are referencing Halo Infinite. Sorry, I did forget to mention that at the beginning.
Yes, Halo Infinite. Sorry.
So, go ahead.
But yeah, I mean, I feel like they did have some things planned, but it wasn't fleshed out enough or outside of like a certain phase, so to speak, to where they could really make moves with it and add it to the game, if that makes sense.
And that's fair. So my theory behind this is they had DLC planned. They had to have.
Mm.
So the last game, Halo 5, came out 5 years prior to this one, right?
Yeah.
So are they really going to wait 5 years to give people new content? There's no way.
Yeah, I would hope
They were already rioting. How bad did it feel for you to wait 5 years for another game? And you're a huge Halo fan.
Terrible. And when it had to be delayed even worse, or another year, because the graphics were so bad and everything, it was gut wrenching.
Exactly. People don't want to wait, especially in this day and age. Waiting is becoming, it's less of a thing. People don't want to do it. So there's no way that they had released this game without plans to do any DLC. And on top of that, playing through the campaign, at the end of the campaign, the only thing I can think of is this is an open world. They have created it. It is there for the taking. What else can they do for it? There has to be other stories. There has to be little side things you can do.
Right.
I mean, look at Assassin's Creed. It's another open world concept, right? But what they actually do is they develop another little map. And it's not a huge map, but it's another DLC map where you go off and do something else here. They could have easily done that with this. Right? Because they had the core there. You cannot tell me that there was no DLC planned for this game. You just can't. I do not believe it. Right. There's no way. Right?
Yeah. I mean, and I know, I don't know if you're meaning just the campaign, but I mean, even for the multiplayer, the DLC just was not coming out fast enough, and it didn't seem, there was some bottleneck somewhere, Jarrett, somewhere.
Yeah. Well, and mostly what I speak of is the campaign, but you're absolutely right. There has to be multiplayer DLC. There absolutely has to be. Because you have to keep people interested. You can't keep the same game with the same multiplayer for 5 years. It's not going to happen. You can't even do it for 1 year.
Right.
You got to change it. I mean, what are the seasons in Fortnite right now? What, 3 months, 4 months? Are we talking quarter?
I have no idea anymore, but yeah, they're very frequent.
Right. There's no way you're not dropping new things that often, right?
Right.
So I'm also wondering if they're just trying to go that route where the pay to get the skins, because I've seen, like, I love the Anubis battle set in Halo. I don't know why, but it's my favorite. And you have to pay like $20 to get it. And I said, F that. I'm not paying $20 for one helmet.
Too much money.
$5? Sure. I'd have dropped $5 on it.
Yeah.
But here's the sad part about that is something that they've already had. Like, it was in a previous game. You don't even have to really change that much coding for it.
Right.
So why do I got to pay $20 for it? I just gave you 60 for. Well, no, actually, I didn't give you 60 for the game. The game was free. That's why you got to pay $20 for it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the campaign though, you did have to pay for.
That's true. I forgot about that part.
I'm glad. I mean, still, like that's too much money in my opinion. Like they should have done like comparables to other games out there, because I don't think anybody else is selling 1 or 2 items, in their cart for $20.
Yeah,
like you get a bundle for that much usually.
Right, especially if it's something that they've already had. If it's a brand new
thing, you don't have
to
redesign it. No thought goes into it. You just got to get it onto the game.
Exactly. And I've talked to Bub. Me and Bub talk about everything when it comes to gaming.
Oh, yeah.
And he's told me that there's leaks about the code for Halo 5 weapons and everything being in the code for Halo Infinite.
Already.
So why is it not available to us? That just doesn't make sense to me. It blows my mind that you would not utilize what you already have.
Right.
I don't understand. I have a business mindset, and that is not. It does not compute. Error 404 does not compute.
It bugs you a lot.
It does.
I know you personally, and I know that bugs the ever living daylights out of you.
It does. It really does. But anyway, the other side, since we mentioned business, I want to get into what I feel and get your opinion on these things for the Microsoft and what they're doing right now.
Okay.
So Microsoft states that its layoffs are post-pandemic era are due to the changing in customer priorities and changing in macroeconomic conditions. So basically, you're looking at the conditions of the economy as a whole versus the micro portions of them, right? So you're looking at overall versus small, right? And those changing conditions are related to everyone going back to work, getting back out, that kind of thing. Overall, the tech industry is projected to take a drop in sales and profits, right? So from a business perspective, here is my reasoning for these layoffs. And keep in mind, this is strictly an opinion, but I've been in business for a while, have a degree in it. So here's my 2 cents. Microsoft overhired and was paying a lot of money to people in the tech industry. And with the pandemic changing the way that the world was operating, everything became remote versus isolated. And it's caused companies to pivot and require more tech and solutions for their remote work and their conditions. So you needed more support, right?
Yeah.
Well, now we're finding our new norm, and people are getting out into the world again. And I've read reports that we're getting back to that balance of remote versus in-person activities.
Mm-hmm.
So people had a chance to realize that they liked shopping in person versus being virtual all the time, right?
Yeah.
You can interact with people, you can get your hands on the object of your purchase, whatever you're buying, right? Humans, you have to understand, humans at their core are extremely social creatures. So they rely heavily on that social interaction. So I can't imagine it. This had to have helped the gaming industry. It had to have.
Right.
So, but now we're getting back to this new norm, and the tech industry is falling again because we're getting back out. People aren't relying on it as much as they did, that kind of thing. So with all of that, you're going to have layoffs so that you can sustain your other employees. And honestly, the first ones typically that go in layoffs are the ones deemed not cost effective. There's that term again, cost effective, right? So with 343 failing at producing Halo games. Now, we have been doing weekly podcasts about ranking the Halo campaigns, right?
Yeah.
Of the bottom 3 campaigns, how many of them were produced by 343?
2 of them, I think.
2 of them. They were actually the bottom 2, right?
The worst 2, yeah.
How many games has 343 produced?
Halo 4, Halo 5, Infinite. I don't know if you count the Master Chief Collection or not.
I don't count the Master Chief. That was a remake.
So 3.
So
2
3.
out of the 3.
2 of the 3 are the worst games, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they failed at producing these campaigns, right? So, and on top of that, it was a timely manner. What did we say? 5 years in between Halo campaigns?
Yeah.
That is excessive, right? And honestly, they're lackluster at best, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're the worst campaigns. So it creates the perfect environment for layoffs. So a cost-benefit analysis most likely showed Microsoft that they would profit more by potentially create a better game if they outsourced the development of the new Halo titles rather than producing them in-house. So at this point, you get rid of your overhead costs, which is your rent, your hardware for your employees, their salaries, anything you got to pay for food, water, whatever, and then any other expenses that come with these employees. You get rid of all that and just pay to let someone else use your engine, use your name and your likeness, and maybe give them a little bit of money and say, go develop this, do it however you need to, but I want it good, right?
Right.
So I want you to think about another aspect of this. If you were a video game producer, how much money would it take you to willingly develop a Halo game? Think about that.
Yeah.
Would you need to be paid for it? Honestly. Or would you be willing to make very little money on it just to get your name in the hat to say, yeah, I developed Halo.
Right.
I developed that next Halo game. We showed them what 343 should have done.
Mm-hmm.
It's a huge brand, dude. There are so many people out there be willing to do it cheap. Microsoft, it can easily have this outsourced.
Right.
And after they do that, they can take their cost savings and put it into other games or whatever they want to do. But honestly, I half wonder if they even plan on developing any games. Mm-hmm. They might have realized their weakness, and that is the fact that they don't have the required talent to develop games, right? At least quality games.
Yeah.
Think about that. But I want your take on it. So that's my business perspective. I want your take on it.
Yeah, so some great points there, like very cut and dry. Like, you know, on the outside looking in, you're looking at 343, you know, as a fan, and you're like, dang, like, you know, the whole building's on fire, it's ready to collapse, all that kind of thing. But diving into it from a business perspective, you know, you can kind of like see those little bitty reasons why it led up to this, and how they can get themselves, you know, out of that burning building or whatever. But, you know, in the industries that we have a thing called OSAT, which just stands for overall satisfaction. And that's going to have things like feedback from your customers, feedback from, you know, third parties who don't have any kind of bias that rank your product, and then like some sort of, self audits and things like that impact your overall satisfaction.
Right.
And it's sad to say that I feel like as a whole, 343's overall satisfaction has been low for a long time.
Yes.
It kind of what you mentioned earlier with the 2 out of the 3 bottom games here. We had, you know, hit and miss campaigns and receptions from Halo 4, which I thought was a very good campaign. But, you know, bad multiplayer. And then Halo 5, which is kind of the reverse. Decent multiplayer, but very bad campaign. And then Halo Infinite, you know, we were talking earlier about this. Halo Infinite could have been that last chance, you know, to make a good AAA title game for Microsoft in the Halo franchise.
Right.
And just, you know, the multiple delays for the campaign and things. Like, I get the global pandemic and everything. But outside of that, there's still been multiple delays, lack of content, you know, even though you said they have the files in there from a previous game, but they still lack content. I don't know how that happens. And just middle of the road reviews from everybody. And as of late, more negative than good. And just, you know, overall Infinite could have been, you know, that proverbial final nail in the coffin for 343 as we know him.
And I think right there, exactly what you said, that That is key. Businesses and companies, especially this large, do not make these decisions on a whim. It doesn't happen. This is years in the making. It has to be, because to make a decision of this level and with this much money involved and this many people involved, it doesn't just happen. You don't just wake up and go, oh, I'm going to fire 10,000 people today and we're going to nix it, right?
Right.
It doesn't happen. So I think that 343 had, by this point, a very short leash. Mm-hmm. Now, I think they had a long leash to start, but I think that at this point they had a short leash, and they said, you're a year in, because that's what we're about a year in, right? Yeah. So you're a year in, it's lackluster, we're getting crap reviews on it at best, right? Yes. And it's just not going where we want it to be. And this is our mothership franchise. This is the franchise of Microsoft. You think Microsoft, you think Halo.
Right.
And we're not going to let you destroy it any further. So what they do at that point is nix it. And, try to do it softly, so to speak.
Right.
But I do think that you're right.
Now,
Infinite was the proverbial final nail in the coffin.
Right. And I agree totally with that. And just, as a fan, the news of this is like really difficult to hear. And it seems, as a fan, we're going to have to suffer from this by having to wait even longer for content, story progression, etc., by outsourcing this. Can you give some sort of hope to the fan here, Jarrett, like with your business perspective on things?
Absolutely. Okay, so I'm going to tell you now, I actually have the exact opposite feeling for this.
Okay.
I do not feel this is going to be a long wait. I really don't. Okay. So think about it this way. I want you to imagine this scenario. It took them 5 years to release Halo Infinite past Halo 5, right?
Yeah.
So what happens if I'm Microsoft and I have the bargaining power with the company I choose to hire to outsource this to? What if I go to you and I say, I want you to do what you need to do, but I need this game in 3 years. And I have this amount of funds for you, which, knowing Microsoft, would be quite a bit to fix the wrongs of this game in this campaign. Mm-hmm. And you got 3 years to do it. Hire as many people as you need, get as many outsources as you need, whatever you need, but it's got to be fantastic.
Yeah.
Think about that. I mean, there are plenty of great companies out there that could easily fix this franchise with a proper game. Guarantee it.
Yes.
Can you imagine Bethesda making an open world Halo?
Oh, wow.
Think about that.
Yeah, that would
Think
be
about
awesome. That would be
right.
awesome.
Who owns Bethesda?
Microsoft.
But they're not going to put Bethesda on it because they got other things going, right? But that's the point, though, is Bethesda's a well-renowned name, right? When you think Bethesda, what's the first thing that comes to your mind?
Well, for me, I'm kind of like partial, but I'm thinking of Fallout.
Okay, Fallout's fine. Point is, what Fallout titles are bad? None.
Yeah.
I can't think of any.
It's like maybe the first two, but it's honestly your cup of tea, and they're like formulated different than the current ones. So,
Fallout 76 kind of had a bad rep when it first came out.
Yeah. Now that I think about it, that's it.
Yeah. But I mean, Fallout 3, Fallout 4, New Vegas, fantastic. Fallout 76 started real rocky. Actually, it's coming back. I mean, I played it and I thought it was good.
That's good to hear.
But point of the matter that I'm trying to make at this point is, what you do is you realize that you don't have the resources, especially the leadership, and we can touch on that in a bit. But you don't have the resources internally to make a great game. So what you do is you go to a company that does have those resources and you hire them to do it, to fix the franchise, right?
Okay.
So I have a little note here. I want to talk to you about tricks of the trade. Okay. So as business people, you and I both know that the more you do something, the better you get at it, right?
Right.
And why is that?
I mean,
it's because you...
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say practice makes perfect, at the very base of it.
Pretty close to that, but essentially tricks of the trade. So practice makes perfect, but why does it make perfect? Because you learn what works and you learn what doesn't work.
Right.
Right? So you learn those little nuances of, all right, I already know this code ain't going to work because this here is here, and you just make this adjustment, boom, we're good to go. an experienced person can figure that out quickly, especially when they've been doing it for a long period of time.
Right.
And you also tend to get those little templates and things like that, right?
Yes.
So the more you do something, the better you are at it. Well, 343 had 3 chances with Halo, and they floundered all of them in, how many years did it take? I can't even think.
Yeah, I don't
5
know.
years in between.
Yeah.
5 years in between 5 and Infinite, and however many years between 4 and 5 was at least 2 or 3 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in 8 years, they did not find good ways to manufacture great games. So why not go find a company that's got 20 plus years experience in creating great games?
Right.
So on a company perspective, one of the best and fastest ways to grow your company is to franchise.
Yes.
Now, you do that because what you do there is you utilize other resources, other people's resources with your brand, and you grow it. So resources aren't just money. It's talent. Exactly. It's skills. It's those things that you just don't have. And it's hard to find those things too, because good talent typically stays where they get paid a lot, but also it's not always about pay either.
Mm-hmm.
If you really enjoy your company, you're going to stay there a long time, right?
Yes, exactly.
So you go find that company that's got those employees that have been there 10 to 20 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
You find that company, you find that team that can build your game and fix it for you, and you just pay them to do it. Heck, they might even be willing to pay to be the company to do it,
Right.
Because it's Halo.
Exactly.
So I ultimately think that with the way that they're going to outsource this. I don't see any other way to do it. 343's done as far as producing new games. They might be the overseer. The way I see that is that's them being nice to 343, saying we're not just going to nix you.
Yeah.
Right. But they're done, and they're going to utilize a better company to make their game. It's not about the profit, I don't think. I think this is more about their flagship game for Microsoft.
Yeah.
So, good.
Oh, I was going to say, it's kind of in a dumpster fire right now, so they need any kind of like saving they can get.
Right.
But yeah.
And the other side that I wanted to touch on was the leadership side of it. So, ultimately, if you think about it, if we can talk NFL, we both know NFL.
Yeah.
If the Saints or the Steelers are doing bad, who's the first person to go?
Probably
it's the head coach.
Yeah.
It's the head coach usually. Why is that? Because ultimately, as a leader, anything that happens is your responsibility. That is part of being a leader. Even if you are not the true cause, you ultimately are the true cause. Because if your people that are below you, or your followers, so to speak, in leadership terms, it would be your followers.
Yeah.
If your followers are not able to do their job to their best of their ability to keep the franchise where it needs to be, it's your job to get them there, or get people that can get them there, right? Or get there. It's just one of those three. So ultimately, you're not making the right choices as a leader to get the franchise where it needs to be. So that's what needs to go.
Yeah.
Well, that's what Microsoft did. They nixed the 343 leadership essentially and said, you're done. Right? But ultimately, I do think that Halo is not as in disarray as it seems. I think that this is people's reactions to it because they weren't expecting it.
Right.
But I do feel like this was a long time coming. A very long time coming.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And we talked a little bit about this off the record too. And I was kind of in that boat, like, man, I'm happy they're making the changes, because I was not happy with what 343 was putting out. But again, as a fan, I'm scared. Like, where's the future of my favorite franchise going? Like, are we going to have to wait another, 5 to 8 years for a new game? Like, I don't want to wait that long.
I highly doubt it.
Especially with what we have out now. It's just, I don't want to play Infinite for this long. But I
exactly.
mean, listening to your perspective on it, and just like the whole business side of it, and the franchising and the tricks of the trade, and just outsourcing that, because we even mentioned it in one of our podcasts earlier, but the marketing campaign company that partnered with Halo for the Halo 5 release did almost a better did a better campaign than the actual than 343 story writers did themselves.
Exactly. And ultimately, I feel bad for the people that have, lost their jobs. I don't want people to lose their jobs. I really don't. Like, that's not what this is about. But ultimately, what it says to me from a business perspective is that they weren't doing what they needed to do. They weren't succeeding.
Right.
And in that sense, you're the first to go.
Yeah.
Whenever you're looking at someone and you're like, I got to pick between, take it back to the old high school dodgeball days. Who are you going to pick? Are you going to pick the quarterback of the football team, or are you going to pick old Joe Schmo over there who's only played dodgeball 3 times in his life?
That's me.
Right. Like, that's just the way it works. And there's a reason for that. And it's because it makes your franchise better if you use people with more experience and people that are better at doing this. Now, here's another aspect. We talk about the losing of the jobs here, right?
Mm-hmm.
If they franchise this out and they outsource it, what do you think is going to happen to the company that gets the contract? They're going to hire people.
Right.
They almost have to. This is such a big game, and I guarantee you that Microsoft puts a timeline on it that says you've got to be done in this amount of time. That's exactly what I would do. I'd be like, hey, you got 3 years, and 3 years is generous, by the way. I'd be trying to push for 2. Because based on the state of Halo, you want to try to get a good title release soon. I actually wouldn't be surprised if they already have someone working on it, to be honest with you. But ultimately, they're going to have to hire someone. Many people. It's just going to be a shift in jobs. And that's typically how the economics works. You shift from one industry to the next. It's going to happen. So the tech industry goes down, but honestly, the service industry is on the rise, right?
Yeah.
You know that because you run in the restaurant business.
Right.
That industry is booming. So it's going to shift from tech to service or something else, right?
And that kind of ties back into that macroeconomics that you kind of mentioned at the beginning that
yes,
Microsoft was looking into. It's in and of itself.
Yes. And that's essentially what they're talking about. They see the shift from the tech industry going into a different industry, probably service and probably a few others, right? And ultimately that's what they're planning for. They don't want to plan to lose money, but they do want to plan to make this franchise better again.
Right.
And ultimately, I agree with this approach because it makes sense. You get rid of what's not working. You find a way to use other resources, especially not your own, to make something better, and that does work, right? So how would you feel if you got a new Halo game in 2 years?
Oh, I'd be ecstatic.
Right. Even 3 years, you'd be through the moon, right?
Through the moon.
Because you'd be like, man, that was so much faster than the last one.
Right.
Now imagine if you get that game in 2 years and it's twice as good as the game you just got.
Oh, man. Oh, I'd be in heaven.
You'd be in heaven. That's my point. So just to give the business perspective side of it and this, keep in mind, this is my opinion. I've never worked in the gaming industry. But I do have years of management experience and a degree to back it up. And ultimately, I can say this. I've worked in the food industry. I've worked in manufacturing. And no matter who I've talked to and what I've worked in, at its core, business is the same. Right? The only things that change are the product or service, because it could be either, and the people. And that's it. And even then, the people are very similar. It's just a matter of leadership styles and the people that follow those leaders, right? That's just the way it works. And I really think, in all honesty, that this is the best move Microsoft can make in order to bring back the Halo franchise. And I think it's going to come back stronger.
Awesome. That is good news to hear.
I hope so. Do do you got any other feelings for where Halo's at right now and how it's going?
Man, I just, kind of like, you kind of put me at ease. And because with all this news, like, yeah, I'm happy they're doing the management change and everything, but I just felt like there was no direction. But just looking through this and just thinking about it, like, in depth, I feel more at ease. And I think, both of us are trying to relay that to the rest of the fans out there too. Like, hey, there's a lot of uncertainties here going on, but we don't have to freak out. We don't have to jump ship quite yet. There's still hope for the franchise. They're just going about it a different way. And to your point, it looks like it's going to be the best way that they can, moving forward for right now.
Absolutely. Well, I hope everyone enjoyed. This is an area that we can offer because it's something that we do on a daily, right?
Right.
And it's something that we actually have quite a bit of knowledge in as far as business goes. And I think it's a fun topic to talk about the business side of gaming, not just gaming, but also it gives the people that don't quite understand it an idea of how it's going, why it's going, and that's what we're here to offer. We want to have fun with gaming, but we also want to try to offer something that helps other people understand.
Yeah.
So, hey guys, we'd love to hear from you. Please hit us up on either Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, whatever. We'd love to see your comments and what you really think, and maybe talk to you guys about how this is going. So until next time, keep gaming and keep having fun.